have a motion and a second?
Who was the first motion? I apologize. Excellent. Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Ms. Davis, Ms. Simon.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the April 13th meeting.
So move to approve the minutes from April 13th, 2023.
Got a second? I'll second.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Simon.
I'm gonna abstain, I wasn't here.
All right, next up is to approve the finding of facts from COA 23-1. Does anybody have any changes or alterations? If not, I'll take a motion to approve it.
Which one is that one? I get the numbers mixed up.
That one is, I got it
No,
here,
no.
somewhere in this joint.
She abstained from the last time. Which one is it? I didn't print them out. I gotta get my,
Yeah,
That would have been the Plain City Nutrition application.
okay.
yeah, the sign for Plain City.
No, I just want to make sure.
Does anybody have any changes or alterations, or want to make a motion? I'll make a motion to approve COA 23-1 finding of facts. You got a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Simon.
Abstain.
All right, we're moving through things. All right, next up is the approval or changes to the finding of facts for COA 23-2. That's for 114 West Main Street. If nobody has any objections, I'll make a motion to approve the finding of facts.
I'll second.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Simon.
Abstain.
All right. Is there any communication, Mr. Hutchinson? Oh, I'm sorry, we skipped a step. If anybody is wanting to speak tonight, if you could stand up and we'll swear you guys, everybody in all at one time. You, yeah?
Sure. If you all raise your right hand, please. I swear that I swear the testimony that I will provide to the Design Review Board this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Now, Mr. Hutchinson, sorry.
Nothing new tonight, just thanks to everyone for being here tonight.
Fair enough. All right, so we're gonna go to the old business, which is COA 23-7, which used to be COA 23-3.
Did you want to go to public comment first?
Sure, yep, you're right. Public comment first, get ahead of myself.
Yeah, it's okay.
First off, we take any public comment, and this would be not related to any piece of business tonight, just general public comment, if anybody wanted to speak. Yeah, sure. Yeah, come on.
Which one is this?
This is just public comment, general public comment, not related to any specific one yet.
Pardon me.
Okay.
We kept it
Yeah, go ahead. You just state your name.
Eric Medici. I'm curious about who the burden of enforcement falls upon. In the past, I had assumed that it fell on zoning if someone doesn't follow through or doesn't do what they're supposed to do. If something happens in a design review board meeting and promises are made, who follows up? Is that zoning or is that you guys? Do you know?
Doobie's on it.
Zoning, okay. Because I know it's been almost 3 years since the granary's egress staircase was put in. And when it came up in front of the design review board, it was supposed to be black painted steel. And a wooden staircase went in without any comment to anyone. So when it was brought up in the next design review board meeting, Mr. Dawson said, well, steel is too expensive, so we made it out of wood. But I'll paint it black. So, and since it was treated lumber, he had to wait for it to cure for a year before it would be painted. Well, we're at 2.5 years now, so I'm not really sure what's going on with enforcement of this. And I brought it up a year ago at a design review board meeting. I know you weren't here, but I know that's supposed to be a fine per week if it's not corrected, and I just wondered how that was handled. So moving forward, it's that would come before zoning.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Great. All right, now we'll move on to old business. COA 23-7 or COA 23-3, depending on your preference. Mr. Robinson, did you want to present, or do you guys have anything to say, or any?
I heard you, this is his submission.
Gotcha, sorry. Hey, come on up.
I wasn't, how do you guys usually do this, but Anthony Scott, Troy, Ohio, I don't, is that how you guys do it? Yeah. Sorry I wasn't able to make it last week, pleasure to be here. I just would like to just say a few things. We sent an email just to kind of give you some idea of what other towns are doing and updating their buildings. And I think there's a precedent been set with some of the buildings that are in town. You know, obviously, the Granary and Pioneer, they updated that building and he's done a nice job with it. It looks fantastic, and a lot of people could argue those are the nicest two buildings in your downtown now from an outside looking in. And that's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to better the community, better the building. You guys don't really have an economic development vehicle like most towns do to pay for some of this stuff, so we're trying to make the nicest building in the nicest location that we can for our business. And, you know, we want to make sure that we are being good stewards of your town with the clock tower, everything like that. And we also want to, you know, we want to be proud of the building that we're putting in there, just like everybody else that owns a building downtown. If you've looked at any of our past things, I used to own Moeller Brew Barn. All the historical buildings that we've done in the past have all been to the nines. And again, we can submit plans, prints, and all those things to you, which I think you have some of that stuff. But we are spending several $1 million in your town, and with that, we don't feel like there's precedent that's been set. I kind of read through what you guys have as far as your design review stuff. I didn't see anything in there about painting brick and determining which one's historic and which one's not. So if you can enlighten me and let me know what's going on, and I wasn't here for the discussion, but we want to make, just like the other developers in this area, or even what Race has done with the other two dilapidated buildings, or Tim as well. You know, they're trying to make this downtown a very, very nice downtown where you got a lot of people coming in and a lot of people that want to come visit. We're trying to do the same thing. So we want to be a good steward of your clock tower, and we do really want to come here, but we just want to make sure that it meets our brand standards as well. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment on COA 23-7?
I'm very glad the public comment's still open, actually. I spoke last week on a number of topics. One of them, I went on about the possibility of staining the brick. And
Just to interrupt, I'm sorry, could you state your name?
Sure, Steve Seifert.
We know, but we're just gonna have it on the record.
Yep, on the record. So since then, I've looked up and I feel that a staining of a historic brick is just as bad as painting, as far as masking and covering up what was originally built. Stain soaks into the pores and crystallizes and forms a permanent bond. That's taken from a leading manufacturer of paint, of stain, Permatent. And I feel like the issue of stain versus paint is really a distraction, that both of them are altering, this historic brick that's a part of this historic building. I feel like that's what you guys are charged with protecting. And so I just wanted to bring that comment and really say, I feel like it's a distraction. Plus they're proposing painting, which again, I'm opposed to. I feel like that is taken away from the historic, nature of this building. It is the emblem of Plain City that it sits on. And so I think it's more important, than anything to protect, this building, so.
The emblem's on top of the building though.
Correct, I'm not talking, it is the building that holds
I mean,
our
I
emblem.
understand it's historic in that aspect, but the brick's not historic to that structure. It's brick.
I disagreed with that. I think the
So.
brick is historic.
It's one of the few pieces that's, untouched on the building, and so I feel like it should remain that way. So,
Thank you.
that's all I have to say.
Yeah, come on.
My name's Stephanie Seifert. I also want to just say, I reiterate what my husband said, that I also agree that any type of paint or stain that would get put on the brick, I do think would deteriorate and erode. And maybe just to reiterate, maybe what I said last week about whatever you put on it, it can never be undone. And for the entire life of this building, it has never been painted. And so to then paint it now, I can appreciate what, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name, but what they want to do. And he named that there's precedence in the town, but since the creation of this board, I think it was in 2010, some of those buildings were painted prior to this board and that protection that this board then produces. And yes, Mr. Dawson's building was painted. I don't personally think that it was to its betterment. I would have appreciated to see the building as it was, again, as a historic building. And then something else that was mentioned, actually Mr. Cron approached me over the weekend while I was working uptown at the Bicentennial Park, and a couple of the comments that he said have stuck with me that I think about. One of the things he said is how much money people are spending in our uptown, and that was swaying him to decide that shouldn't they be given maybe allowances or something like that. And maybe as I've thought about that comment, it has made me say, I don't think that this board or this community should be able to be bought. And I appreciate the millions of dollars that are potentially being spent in our community, and that is appreciated. But I don't think that that gives somebody an extra privilege to be able to do things. That's what this board's job is, to uphold the standards that were set forth for it to uphold. No matter how much money you have, no matter who you know, no matter who you are as a person, the standards is what's important. And the protection of these historic buildings in this historic district is what's the responsibility of this board. So I do think that the application as it stands, I do think should be denied, not just for the paint aspect, but also for the rolling windows or what I call garage door windows. I also think that's not in keeping with the historic nature of the building. The windows, again, are as they were. And in historic times, we didn't put garage doors in for windows. And so I think that also, those two aspects of the application, I don't think are in keeping with the building.
Thank you.
I would like to make a comment. As I remember when I talked to you, I said I was undecided of what I was gonna. I was very undecided on paint or not.
Sure.
I wasn't for the paint or not against it.
Eric Medici again. And I guess since we're talking about that, I know the Historical Society, we had a conversation about paint months back, and you said your job on this board was to do and follow the guidelines. That's what you were tasked with doing. So I'm sure you'll do that to the best of your ability. Last time, and you weren't privy to this, but last time I went through lots and lots of examples in the guidelines where they say you should not paint a historic building. Once again, pull up Google, say, can you paint a masonry building in a historic district? Just type it in, and it'll say not recommended. You don't have to read the 190 pages to figure that out. It condenses it for you. I've got rehabilitation section, page 22, if you have the same copy as I do. Building exterior masonry. Can you apply paint? Not recommended. Page 40, same thing. If it's a storefront, not recommended. And I could go on, but every single section in there where it mentions painting, masonry, or staining, it's the same thing because it alters what it originally looked like. And in the actual Plain City zoning, where they take a little excerpt out of those 190 pages of guidelines, and they specifically list line items. Number 5, on your condensed guidelines, page 62, distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction that characterize a property will be preserved. It's the only one in town with a tan butter joint masonry. It's the only one that I'm aware of. It is a characteristic finish, it's a characteristic material. It shouldn't be monkeyed with. I mean, and again, I'm just disturbed that we keep having this discussion, and I said that last time I was up here. This is a case closed thing. This should have been killed in the first 2 minutes. And the fact that I have to keep looking this stuff up and making notes again is really aggravating. It's a waste of everybody's time and effort. It shouldn't be painted. And there is no if, there is no but. And when someone comes up here and says, but I'm investing all this money in this town, and no offense, that just tells you that it's a bad decision. He wouldn't have to say that. And if his thought of, you know, I'm going to move to Plain City, this looks like a good place, we can make something special, we can make money, our business will thrive here. If the color of the building has anything to do with that, he does not have a good business plan and he will fail. The color of the building doesn't affect how his building or how his business is going to work. And he talks about precedent. Well, the precedent was that the previous village administrator had never read those 190 pages. So when that paint started hitting Mr. Dawson's building, I immediately called the administrator. I said, this is not supposed to happen. It hasn't come in front of the design review board. And village administrator showed up and says, well, of course he can paint his building. And it sprayed it immediately. That's how it happened. Precedence was not set. It did not go through the design board. It was not allowed. It wasn't appropriate. So I just wanted to clear that up because he starts talking precedence and no precedent has been set by this board saying you can paint a masonry building. None. So I completely agree with Ms. Seifert. There is no reason there should be a roll-up door on the front of that building. They said in the last meeting they were going to have music inside there. My patio is directly across the street. If I've got music blaring from his side and I got music coming out of the brewery on the other side, it's going to affect my business and my livelihood.
And I appreciate that comment, but actually this isn't the place for that.
If you're gonna take that tack and you're not gonna appreciate that,
appreciate
then I will
it,
go
but
through and I will list all of, well, okay, you know what, that's how we ended up in the situation with Tim. That's exactly the same comment as John Rucker said. When John Rucker was on this board, he said, you know, this is gonna cause a lot of headaches, but this isn't our job. That was his quote. I was there, I listened to it, and we are dealing with this, and the rest of us in town are having problems, and we'll have problems forever because of that.
That's not the guidelines we're making.
The guidelines I'm talking about is, again, let's go back and refresh your memory. Distinctive materials, finishes, construction that characterize a property. That's windows, not garage roll-up doors.
Yeah, and the appearance of the committee is about, but the music doesn't have the relevance on what we're doing. The zoning and the city council.
Okay, I will state it a third time if you'd like. We're already past that. I'm trying to get us back on track here. I'm talking about the look, the finish, the change. Okay, that's what I'm focused on.
Great.
So, now that we're back on track, they're not appropriate. It says, and again, I can go through in many, many places, you are not to replace windows or put different things in where windows existed. It says it in your guidelines. That's what you guys are tasked with applying here. There are things on their application, the screening from the HVAC equipment on top of there. There's no explanation of what that is, what it's gonna look like, no details whatsoever. You guys shouldn't be able to make a decision on that because you don't have even a single shred of information about what they plan on putting up there. So when you start looking through the details, there are more questions. This should not be passed hands down just because of all the unanswered questions, let alone the fact that you shouldn't paint a masonry building. I think that building with a good detergent cleaning and flip-flopping the colors would pop. It would look fantastic. And again, if him coming here is based on painting that thing, that color, we don't want that business in town. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a comment?
I wasn't going to, but I sure am now. I know Race and I don't always see eye to eye on everything. We don't, and I don't ever want him to see eye to eye with everything with me, because both of our ideas together are great. And the precedent has been set for garage doors by this board, absolutely. And I don't believe that there's anything wrong with updating a building. We're talking about Race is maintaining that historic building there. And he is gonna be putting, I hope he's gonna be putting garage doors and modernizing it somewhat without changing the walls and the way that building is sitting there and holding up the clock. That's not gonna change. And I can tell you that there is no law that says you cannot paint brick. As a matter of fact, if you guys drive around in other downtowns, go to Bell Fountain and you'll see how many buildings, and that Jason Duff that has Small Nation, if you want to talk about someone that spent money, he spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on Bell Fountain, and he just painted several of his buildings and they were brick. And you know, I'm a firm believer, and it's just my own crazy idea, but Race owns the building, and Race ought to be able to do what he wants to do with the front of his building. And it is in there that says that if he chooses a color within the historic colors, he can paint his building. And if I want to paint the Main Street Treasures building, I can apply to paint the building, just like I did the theater, to paint the front of the building, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to paint the brick. And I personally do not have a problem. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the nicest, I thought I had a nice looking building. His building is it's so nice, so nice. What he's doing is unbelievable. I don't understand the change, this whole town is gonna change. I don't know why we get so upset over something like paint and the way that building is gonna look, because it's gonna look fantastic. And I think that we're complaining about the wrong kind of stuff. There's a lot of other things to complain about. There really is. There's a lot of other things, but you know, when we're trying to follow a comprehensive plan, we're trying to get entertainment, we're trying to get dining, and we're trying to do the things that we're doing. We're following those things, and that's the direction the village is moving. We have to support that. And I think that Race has done more than anyone, more than me, even, as far as trying to preserve what he has. And if no one's invested more than he has about preserving his town that he went to school in. So I think that some of those comments are really unfounded, and I really do hope that you can look past some of the almost hatred, because I am, like I said, I don't see eye to eye with Race, but I don't hate him, and I love what he's doing to that building. That building looks fantastic.
Ina Medici, hi again. I would just like to state that I think painting the building is a terrible idea. I think it's a maintenance nightmare. We've certainly seen speckled buildings because they were painted and the paint peels off. But, you know, we own the bank building, and perhaps we should just paint it black. So, you know, that might be the next thing that comes up here before the board. So, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Your residence where you're at, have you had maintenance issues with your brick that's painted? Because your brick is painted, isn't it?
It was
Severe problems.
terrible.
Look at it. It's coming off, right outside Jenny Rose office. I've watched it fall off the tins for 2 years now, so he's been up there multiple times having to retouch it up, paint it.
Had it not been painted, we would not have painted it.
No, I was just asking because you actually are in a building that is painted. And I wanted to ask,
And I
would you
paid
get the
for
fact?
maintenance. In fact, I had a storm adjuster out from the hailstorm that went through, and that was something I was literally discussing today. Because when the hail hit the brick, it knocked the paint off. So, yes, we are currently right in the middle of the throes of that.
Anybody, any other public comment? Before we move forward? Yes, please.
Hi, for the record, my name is Jenny Brill, and some information was sent to me, and I was not privy to it until today. But it's my understanding that there's a document and rules for which the committee is to abide by. And section 132708 and 132709 refer to standard for rehabilitation, oops, there it moved, rehabilitation guidelines and so forth. And if rules are given to a committee, to a village, to our country, I feel that the rules need to be followed. If the rules are not appropriate, then appropriate measures should be taken to change the rules so that it would apply at that specific point in time. So I personally am struggling with, if we have a set of rules and we're to follow these rules, what's the discussion? If it's saying in these rules, which it does state in there, what Mr. Medici said, where's the discussion, and why don't we go through the proper procedure to change the rules to apply them appropriately to the situation that we're in today? That's my comment.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
I'm asking this just because I don't know the question, so I'm not trying to upset anybody. There's a couple, architect had said that maybe the building is not registered historically, just the clock tower is registered historically. Can you give some clarity to that to us, anyway?
The building sits within the historic area of the town.
Right, but it being registered makes it.
There is only one registered building in town, and that is the bank building, which Mr. Medici owns.
So it's a non-registered.
But it is in the historical district.
Right, so it means that these rules and guidelines apply to it.
Well, there's two different sets of rules for registered and non-registered. That's the reason why I asked the question. So,
No, there aren't. They're all set. It's 1327.08, standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. It's a locally designated historic district. That's how the international building codes and rules will apply. It's within a locally designated historic district, so the rules all apply. Sorry for jumping in, but that's how it works.
I had a couple of non-paint work related questions, if you don't mind me asking.
do you want me to stand up?
No, you're fine. The dumpster enclosure, the fencing, and the hiding of the HVAC, do you have any plans or like any examples of what that's gonna be yet?
Well, we have not submitted materials for that because we don't know what we're gonna be able to do to the outside of it. We're not doing anything to the back side of it because it has it's already painted, the nail pouch.
Sure.
Holder, on there, so we haven't got that far yet, and we have to rip that building off, we don't know what's behind it. So yeah, so we're gonna submit those materials when we get those separately. Is that want to make sure, because it's a visible space, that like the fencing and all that goes through zoning, and the material can be seen.
What about the doors? I saw there's a few doors that don't have things on those. Is that the same thing? You'll pick them out once and submit them separately.
If you don't approve the garden, then the door's gonna have to go out a different area. So we haven't even finalized our print set because we're waiting on the community.
Yeah, just more trying to clarify what we're approving and not approving, so we can rule out some things that would be
The only
later.
door that's visible from the street is glass. So the enclosed doors from the kitchen are all enclosed in that fenced-in area. Again, we'll meet the guidelines. We don't know if it's gonna be wood or black or whatever it's gonna be based on what the color of the building is.
In here, it noted that the clock tower is gonna be painted. I assume that's not part of this project, right? That would be for city. It was in, on the north elevation, it said existing clock tower to remain painted. I assume that's not, you guys are not doing anything with
Sorry
it.
about the clock itself.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah, last meeting, we
Yep.
just clarified
I-
that we would not be, because again,
It's not
you know,
yours.
stewardship of the community, that never had easement before. The village owns that asset. It sits on top of our asset, right?
Yeah.
But we're not gonna do that. It's always been one.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we get everything clarified, so when we put this thing up for a vote, you know, everybody's clear on exactly what is included in this vote and what will be down the line. Let's see, what else do we have? One thing on the paint. Were you considering, like where it says coffee on the side of the building and then the words in the, above the windows, is that considered signage? Are you guys considering that signage for later?
Yeah.
Just wanted
We
wanted to clarify that.
chose the color of the building. I know there's a lot of angst about painting the building, but we chose the color of the building to accent the clock tower color.
Sure. And then one other part, it mentioned it showed awnings, but in the notes, it just mentioned removing them. Is the plan to put awnings, but bring them up later once you guys get?
All gone, yeah, all
Yeah.
the awnings would be removed.
Okay.
And then there'd be one awning on the coffee shop side that we would have to submit as far as.
Great.
But it's actually just, it's the same exact awning that's there now, it's just refabricating it.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Have you thought about just cleaning it and see what it looks like when it's done, when it's cleaned? Just as a thought.
It's not really on brand,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
On brand for what's going in there?
Correct.
Is that the restaurant that's coming in, is that their colors and logo, like part of their thing?
If you
I'm just
look at
curious.
all of our stuff that we do, we bring stuff back to life. We're doing the same thing now in Troy with the old movie theater that's down there. We're turning into a live music venue. Same thing. We're painting the outside of that building from the 20s. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with Plain City. I get that. We want to bring stuff back to life, bring it back to new, and provide, a great place for folks. We're not trying to cause any problems or harm or anything like that. So.
No, I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, we did the same thing with the 20s church, 1870s church in the historic district in Troy as well. Painted the backside.
Would you consider keeping it original brick? I can think of lots of examples. I know Delaware was mentioned, and we have the building that Amado's is in, sitting right in the crossroads of town, all historic brick.
I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. But
So,
that's,
Because this is your brand and this is,
I mean, it's a lot of money, and if you're trying to, let's just say I wanted to sell the business at some point, it's part of what we're selling. It's an asset to what we're doing, and we've got a lot of, I know I'm gonna say we got a lot of money invested in it. We want to improve our asset to the best that we think that it's going to sell at, and I'm a construction guy by trade, so I want to.
but you're saying you want to improve your asset, but if you know, and it's been proven, that paint does damage to brick, historic brick especially, how does that?
Well, I think, and again, as our asset, we think it's worth more like this, and we are required to maintenance it, and our property to maintenance it, just like both of these guys said that they maintenance their painted brick. That really doesn't have anything to do with zoning. If we don't maintenance it, you can fine us and do whatever, but that's our money that we've invested in that piece. It saved me a lot less money just to clean the brick.
That's why I don't understand why you would choose. I know, if you have a brand, you have a vision in mind. And I understand that, and if it wasn't on a historic building, in an area where it's designated to not make permanent, unchangeable, alterations to the building. I mean, I can see that you can paint it outside of a historic district, but you're dealing with the building that's in the center of our town that we know painting it would damage the brick if you ever try to remove it. And so it permanently alters that building.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It's just, I look at it from an investor side, we're trying to protect our investment and try to do what's best for us as investment as well as, the clock tower and maintain the clock tower and all that. So we could probably go around in circles, we're probably never going to agree. And as far as the windows have to be replaced regardless, whether it's glass roll-up doors or that, because they don't meet current code. So when you tear everything out of there, it's gonna have to be replaced and brought up to there. So whatever you guys decide there, but yeah, I do understand where you guys are coming from, because we have the same issue in Troy with a plain stained glass window that some people have an affinity for, and there's a compromise made there. So I don't think the building as it sits with the current color build, but it suits our needs.
Anybody else have any comments before we close public comment? Any questions? All right, I think we can close the public comment. Is next up going down our finding of facts, or?
Yes. Yeah, go through the criteria.
All right. Number one, or A, is property shall be used for a historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site environment. Comment on that one? What was the original use? I guess I don't even know.
I think it's always been retail.
Retail. Anybody have any comment on that one or objection to it?
That one is borderline in my mind because it is changing from retail to. The difference is with it being retail is that it's always been a retail building that's all had limited hours use, and now it's changing to something different where it would be expanded hours. But we've made that change with buildings before, so that wouldn't, I don't think that would preclude it.
Anybody else have a comment on that one? If not, we'll move on to the B, the historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided.
Well, this is a big one.
This is the debate,
This is
right?
this is the one that I think it's pretty clear that painting it is altering it permanently to where it can't be restored without damage to the building.
Yeah, the question is, to me, is it a feature or character of the building, you know what I mean, or is it just a wall, you know what I mean, but it's definitely changing the way it looks, so.
I believe the word that was mentioned earlier tonight was distinctive, I think. The
Defining,
distinctive
is in
detail.
there a lot, yeah.
It is a historic type of brick that's not very common and not a lot of it around. So it's probably part of our mandate to preserve it.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that one? Jim?
Well, I'm thinking that it changes the characteristics of the property shall be avoided. Does painting change the characteristics?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what your definition of a characteristic is.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to C. Each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from the building, shall not be undertaken. I don't think it gives any false historical things, I don't think that one applies, unless anybody objects, no. Most properties change over time, those changes have acquired historic significance in their own right and shall be retained and preserved. I don't see nothing that we haven't covered. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques are examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. This goes back to the similar rate, it is a one-of-a-kind building. What is the color of it? The distinctive feature. It probably
And
does
well,
when you
it's not
change
just-
it.
Yeah, it's not just the color, but it's, I mean, if you paint it, you alter the texture of the brick, you alter the actual brick itself, if it absorbs any of the, and it can never be undone, so
Yeah, I think there's no solution that
it
doesn't
shall be preserved.
alter the brick, like even cleaning it's gonna have a negative impact on the brick, right? Which
No.
one's more long-term, I mean, with working with brick, with any chemical you put on it, that the darkness of that to get it back to the color it was, is, you're gonna have to change it, it's gonna take on it's gonna be different. Any other thoughts on that one? Okay. Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of the deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of the missing feature shall be substantiated by documentary, that doesn't sound right, physical or pictorial evidence. I think once again, we get to the same discussion, right? G, chemical or physical treatment such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. The surface cleaning of structures, if appropriate, shall be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Not applying here. Significant archaeological resources affected by a project shall be protected and preserved. If resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures shall be undertaken. I don't think that applies here.
They're not applying at all. They're not changing the actual shape of the building or any of the architectural features.
New addition, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old work. Like I said, there's no addition. New additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment.
If you go back to the previous one, I think that installing a roll-up garage door would apply to that one. It's an exterior alteration that does alter the building significantly.
Okay.
I don't know if it's significantly. It does alter it a little bit, but it's not significant, I don't think.
They didn't have roll-up garage doors. Or
But they also didn't have the technology when this building was built to have a roll-up garage door. Just like people didn't paint the brick because the only people that typically did it were the people that were very rich in those days, because you needed certain minerals that dye paint to get that color. So again, I mean, it's not historic putting that, but in there again, they are making it look a whole lot better, and it's going to be functional for what they need.
Yeah, we have approved those type of doors before, just recently, the building right next to it. We changed those out, or approved the change of those out. The question would be, is the replacement of, to me, the replacement of these, does it change any historical character? It keeps talking about the characters they're defining or distinctive characteristics of where those are at right now. Let's see. We're at K, right? Existing structures and premises, reconstruction or rehabilitation within the historic district shall conform to the distinguishing original and exterior qualities or character of the structure, its site and its environment, which convey its historical, cultural, or architectural value. This is another one that kind of leads us right back down the same road.
Yeah. And again, I would argue that maintaining it in its present condition is what's required here.
L is new construction, the new design of new structures and additions. So this isn't a new structure, it doesn't apply. Materials, all new structures and all reconstruction or remodeling existing structures within the historic district shall utilize natural traditional exterior materials such as brick, stone, masonry, glass, and wood. I don't think there's any, I don't have any objections to the materials. Does anyone else?
Nope. No objection.
Once again, materials, the use of contemporary materials such as aluminum, metals, fiberglass, or plastics for the exterior surfaces of the architecturally significant structures shall be prohibited unless the use of such materials would contribute to the preservation or enhancement of the existing traditional materials and the overall integrity and longevity of the structure. I believe we've kind of taken out all of those materials from this approval because those will be brought in later if the fencing or the skirting around the HVAC or the dumpsters. None of that's on the table today, so I don't think there's anything else that will apply there. Color, traditional colors and combinations of those colors that are both identified with the origin or the era in which the structure of the property was built shall be used for exteriors for all new structures to be built, and reconstruction, remodeling, and exterior maintenance of the existing structures within the historic district. And you can confirm that these are, the colors they've chosen are approved by the district.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a comment on the color? Signs, there's nothing on the signs that's being approved tonight, so that one doesn't apply. And the last, the guidelines, the standards, and design guidelines established in this chapter, any guideline, design guidelines, design diagrams, or colored guidelines later adopted by ordinance are to be used in evaluating applications, unless the board determines that a deviation from such provisions will not be contrary to the public interest and is warranted by special circumstances. In granting a deviation, the board may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards to maintain the spirit and intent of this chapter. Anybody, I don't think that really has a comment, just the guidelines. Anybody else have any further comment before we vote?
Can I just ask, on your buildings like in Troy and Bell Fountain, the ones that you painted, because I got on the website and was looking, what kind of maintenance are you seeing that you've had to do to the exterior?
Well, it's a specific paint you have to use it on brick, but the one in Troy, we painted in 18, we haven't had to touch it up yet. Doesn't mean it won't have to happen, but it was white, or like an ivory or something, it was a historical piece, but we haven't had any maintenance on that one yet, it was an 18, but it doesn't mean that we won't have some maintenance. But again, spend a lot of money chipping paint is not something that we're going to let fly for doing that, so.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to approve COA 23-7 to make sure to note that we're excluding the fencing, the awnings, the signage, the roof, the border around the roof, the doors. Also note that the beer garden area is still subject to the zoning, and they can make minor changes if necessary when that goes through zoning. But I'll make that motion if there's a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
I'm sorry, what am I saying yes to?
So there was.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. There was.
I just, I'm sorry.
Mr. Price motion to approve COA 23-3, with the exclusion of the fence, the sign, and the border, and with the condition of the beer garden going through zoning. That was seconded by Mr. Daly.
I'm sorry.
Don't take your time. This is, your opinion's important.
In 5 minutes, we can get 5 minute break.
Could we?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I?
That'd be great, thank you.
Can I ask for clarification too? Does that include the windows or not the windows?
I did not include the windows and exclusions. Is it all right in the middle of the vote to take a 5 minute break, or do we need to continue?
Yeah, as long as nobody deliberates, nobody talks. Yeah, I think you've had your deliberations, you're at the vote stage now. If you want to take a break for Jamie to consider this, that's fine, as long as nobody talks about it.
We'll take a 5-minute break, we'll get back together.
We talk hockey.
Stop talking, I'm missing my game.
I can't get over the quality of the game.
I know.
I've never seen you play hockey like this. I mean, it's usually good like in the last couple of rounds. No, for me, I can't see this right. Do you want to know the score? No, I just didn't know if you were DVR.
No,
I took it.
It's 0-0.
We're gonna get a floor redone.
More than half, well, at least half of the building.
We're having a floor.
I don't want to get all the way doing anything.
Well, not all of it. The existing floor is
Half that.
sanded down, and then the living room is in the whole car.
Oh.
Every picture is, everything's all.
You make that strong.
The person who's doing the flooring had an issue. So they couldn't do the sanding twice. Now they could do the sanding tomorrow.
Oh, no,
And then Friday they could do the staining. We can technically put on it, the staining is gonna take like, let's say 3 or 4 hours to dry.
Well, I've never seen Stanley dry that quick.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about, but like, they said, you know, over the weekend, you might be able to, you could be on it on Saturday, Sunday, but like, wear socks, don't scuff it up. And then Monday, off, oil baseball here, and Tuesday, oil baseball here.
You want to hear
So we won't be able to get on it till Tuesday. They kind of said, well, maybe Tuesday night, and I'm like, only if you finish by like 10 in the morning.
Okay.
You know, I'm not gonna take furniture and drag it across the ring from home.
Well, we've got an adjuster
So,
put out there.
all that being said, I have no TV to watch. I'm watching TV on my laptop in my office downstairs.
Well, we've got an adjuster come to our house. I got 38 holes in my house from that hailstorm on Friday.
No, I heard that.
My whole, we have one side that faces west, 2-story,
I just got pummeled.
Oh.
Right through the siding?
right through the siding. You can see the sheeting on the other side. We've got probably, of the 38 dings and dents, 17 are actual holes. And they go the quarter size.
Yeah. And if it was holes in the siding, all the roofs are gonna have to be redone.
Well,
You know, the roofing guys are gonna come in here.
It was always
on Saturday, there was 4 on my street alone. Like, we only have 14 homes there. Like, we had 2 drop offs. Like, we talked to 2 of them. We're compete with them.
We got so lucky, I was leaving the office, we were getting calls saying what's happening. Number one, I'm driving.
because I am.
I don't wanna break my car. Number two, like, oh God, we just done.
No, you're not.
Unfortunately,
My daughter.
it's out there.
Yeah, because you're
8
down.
miles that way.
Yeah, it's tips.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the one year for told her, she said, can I change it to
And I'm
different color?
not
She said, as long as it's
Oh,
in
yeah.
Atlas scheme. So she's gonna live in chocolate color. She already knows what she wants, you know? And I told the guy, I said, it's only, really, anything that faced west. He says, but how long?
I hope,
He said,
I
no, yeah,
didn't ruin any friends.
He says, he said, your roof looks brand new. I said, we've done 16.
Well,
last
you
few
know,
years."
I do.
He said, we
Yeah.
ain't survived, but we've had 4 other neighbors around there, they're all getting roofs, so I'm assuming we're getting roofs.
Yeah, that's what happened with us. We did it. I wanna say it was later. Maybe
Was
it
it
was
15, 13, somewhere?
It was later. It was,
Tiffany was 2009, somewhere in there.
no, it was much later than that. Like ours was done in like 19.
Oh, okay.
I wanna say this
I'm
was
so busy with my
but that was up in California.
You only have one.
They
I mean, you have
through there, and I ended up kind of out of pocket. So I
Oh,
ended
I-
up reserved.
My family.
Yeah, and
got
they
rid
have
of
to
it.
have.
And I just told them,
God,
put it up for sale, you say, brand new roof,
My
2019.
wife's with my family.
The lady goes, so what about your grill? Your barbecue? Think about that, go out there and just look at this burger and like, typical me, I'm all being hammered. Ding, 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 ding. I want me a trainer. I want me a pit boss.
So it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all.
Guess I won't be here.
Well, I won't probably 10 years. What age group you got?
I'm actually not coaching. I'm involved in ACABA, sure, give me something weird now, just helping out, doing anything with sports. And trying to help get things together, spray it off the ground. and
I'll tell you
whatever.
what, when you're a parent of a player, you're just as busy taking them to the ball.
This lab next to it, my daughter's ballet, tap, gymnastics, and like all the recitals and showcases are all next weekend. It's a week of recitals and then sprinkling some scrimmages.
Well, see, I'm raising them. And the other one's into music, and so I got through it.
Yeah, my daughter never was interested. They told her that something was competitive, she wanted no interest in it. Talked to her playing basketball now, she wants to do everything, so she's in like 4 things. We gotta start narrowing. All right, we're ready to call the meeting back to order. You want to do a recap?
Yeah, absolutely. So we currently have a motion, first from Mr. Price and a second from Mr. Daly to approve COA 23-3 with the exclusion of the fence, depicted in the rendering, sign, the window border, and that the rear guard would go through zoning. We currently have yeses from Mr. Price, Mr. Daly, and Mr. Cron. For currently roll call for the vote. Ms. Davis.
No.
Ms. Simon.
No.
Good? So the motion passes. All right, and we can move on to COA 23-4 for 138 West Main Street. Another sign. Mr. Dawson, do you want to talk us through what you got?
Just 1 second here, I'll bring that up. Sorry, it's sideways there, I don't know if I could flip that over or not.
No, I didn't have it from last week.
Sorry, it's sideways, for some reason this thing will not let me flip it over.
So, this application is, kind of a, straightforward application. It's a directional sign that we want to, hang off of the building to show, people that are driving by that there is a patio back behind. They have comment after comment after comment. We didn't even realize it was here. We come into the restaurant, we didn't even know what you had. And, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. And so, one of the things I'd like to be able to do is to apply more curb appeal, which is very critical when you're driving by. It's one of John Tapper's #1 things is you need to catch the customer from their car, from their curb. And that's one of the things that I think that a lot of people talk about. A lot of people come to the greenery because of the patio in the summertime. And I would like to draw some, a little bit of attention from the road about that patio that's back behind the building.
So this is located east of the building. It'll come off the building over the property owner's portion of the alley that's in between there, the private alley.
Yeah, it's actually behind the front door, behind the awning even, that's already up there, the metal awning.
Can you talk a little bit about the materials used?
Yeah, it's all aluminum, the whole, and it'll be powder coated,
How's it attached to the building?
with, it'll be probably Tapcon, 1/2-inch Tapcons.
Thank you. Anybody have a public comment on it? Anybody like to speak on it? Yeah, please come on up.
How big is that space that you can occupy there? Because this is saying it's 154 inches. Like, long. Like, how are you attaching it to, it's on the building, but how else are you attaching it? Because it's cantilevering out that far. I don't think that sign will sit by itself, so you're attaching it somewhere else, you have another post.
Yeah, the awning that comes out, it will also be helping to support it, and there's also a post on the other side that would help support it also.
I think the next slide shows the posts.
I thought we had, was that in your, you saw that?
Yeah, I have
one, didn't you?
You wanted this?
I don't remember,
Yes,
I don't remember post being there though.
Oh,
Yeah, there, yeah, there's.
It's the same page. Yeah, this is my first time using a computer.
Yeah, if you're having trouble, if you wanna change the organization, download it, it'll
Right.
download it to PDF and then you run it.
Why don't I just turn my computer sideways?
Or you turn the screen sideways. Yeah, just download it and then you can hit rotate.
So it's gonna have its own freestanding sign, post on the other side.
Yeah, that'll help support that. It's aluminum, so it's fairly light, but it's still, we would just like to add that to it, just try to give it a finished look.
Here's kind of I did this just for the visual. You can see this black structure here. This.
Okay, no, this helps. I thought the zoning code rule for signage was 1 square foot for each linear foot of frontage that your business has, and that patio has 0 frontage. So the way I read the zoning code, that sign can't be there.
Yeah, so in the approval in your staff report, you'll see that even if you approve the design, it still has to go through BZA for a variance.
Yeah, we're not here to, if it's meets the zoning, we're here to see if it is appropriate to be put down, I believe. In
Okay, I thought that it had to be approved by him before it would show up in front of you guys to waste your time. I guess I had assumed that had already happened.
Either way, it still would still have the BZA to go through.
Okay, well, that was just my first comment. We all know that Race is doing a major renovation on the building next door, and that Tim was so upset about it that he filed an appeal with council to try to get it reversed. And when he had no luck, filed a lawsuit to try to stop the project. And his reasoning, and he brought Jason James with him, his reasoning was Jason James won't be able to get his trash out to the curb. And this was such a big trauma, he was willing to file a lawsuit against the village because you couldn't get, Jason James, who's in the middle here, couldn't get his trash out. Well, if he puts that up, and the next one on your list here is the fence that it connects to it, it really is the same thing here because that vertical post is going to be an 8-foot tall privacy fence running all the way down the middle of that alley. Well, Jason James won't be able to get his trash out. We just, again, the whole reason for that lawsuit was the trash. So he's trying to play both sides of the coin here. You can't have it both ways. And if he's worried about it enough, the access and having it open and being able to get through there, if he puts that fence up, he won't get anything through there because he's got an egress staircase taking up half of the distance. And Race was nice enough to place the elevator in his building off of the property line to try to help the whole situation out and be a good neighbor and do the right thing. And Tim won't be able to maintain that sign unless he's on Race's property. So that's a problem. Now, if you want to go and say, oh, well, we're just looking at this from a historical perspective, and you only want to specifically look at that, you say, okay, there isn't a single material in that that's historic. It's aluminum. The fence he wants to put up is plastic, and it does not look historic. I think it's just wildly inappropriate. And when you couple that with an 8-foot fence, it's going to look, it looks like a hate fence. It looks like he put it up just to hurt Race. And what it's going to do is it's going to make it impossible for Race to build his building. He's not going to be able to get the equipment in to put his building up. So I think, my personal opinion, is that this whole thing is designed to hurt Race. Just to screw his construction plans up. I think this is a hate fence. That's my
Anybody else like to speak?
Are we talking to fence and the sign, or just the
Just the
sign?
sign right now.
I guess I think the sign is extremely large. It's 12 feet. I don't do it necessarily well in inches, so 12 feet in my mind. And I just think it's the third sign that would be on this building. I think the main use for the building is supposedly a restaurant. And so I'm not understanding why a sign then to direct you to a piece of the restaurant is absolutely necessary. If you're coming to the restaurant, I think then that would be the people who are working in the restaurant to let their patrons know. By the way, we have outdoor seating. Anytime I go to a restaurant, there's generally someone that says, do you want to sit inside? Do you want to sit outside? So I'm not sure why you need a 12-foot fence or 12-foot, sign to alert people to a piece of the restaurant when it already has 2 signs on it that tells you you've arrived. So I'll talk about the fence later.
Thank you.
I would just like to comment on the historic just form and location of the sign. I know historically the signs would be perpendicular, like I believe the silo sign is, though it's not quite in the right location. And I think the granary sign is also perpendicular. Zoning requirements aside, which I feel like that is definitely a cause for concern, I don't feel that this supports the historic district in any way. There certainly were no signs of that nature at any time in the past, whether 10 years ago or 100 years ago. So I just don't feel that it meets the historic standards in any way. So, thank you.
Race Robinson. I'll stick to the sign piece. I don't love the sign. You actually proposed at one point a sign that could go from building to building. That was like a cool archway that you'd see like in Austin, right on 4th Street or something like that, that you could make look pretty cool and historic with like iron or something of that nature and add some really cool elements to it. I personally would rather see something like that and see the remainder of that alley stay, the former alley stay open as it is, and do something like that and more of a collaborative approach than divide it further in half. But I just wanted to throw that out there as like you brought it up before as a potential option. I didn't mind it. We kicked it for like 2 seconds. I personally, as the adjacent building owner, would rather do something like that and join the two to some degree in a more historic-like fashion that maybe labels the whole alley or something creative, or whatever, that then you could hang something from or add to designate that as like the granary patio. I don't have a problem with like the look of the sign. I'm just thinking, a little bit differently of how to do that. And I actually liked that idea when you brought it to the surface originally, so.
Can I make a comment? That's the first time I've seen you 3 owners agree and come and want to work together. If you 3 ever work together, amazing what our downtown could be. I like the idea of an arch that comes through there. It would signify what that is through there, and it wouldn't separate the 2 businesses or the groups that are there. It would like Mr. Robinson, as you said, it would tie that piece together. I actually like that idea. Instead of having a post that would be in the middle that would hinder the Mr. James, is it Mr. James, I think it is between you guys? Is that his last name? I forget his name. It would allow him still to be able to come down through there possibly with his stuff. That archway would announce that alleyway, and you could even still have the granary on it. I mean, if that's what, to announce that, but I like that idea. And if it did come in, I would like the wrought iron, because that's what would have been something that I could have seen. You brought up Austin or San Antonio. They have things like that do that, and it's a nice little look. So that's just my 2 cents. But I love that you want to work with him a little bit, possibly, and that's, for sign, I like that.
For clarification, he brought that up, it was his idea a long time ago. But then we just,
No, but
We're so busy that it's hard, and so I just went with the idea myself.
No,
Get it done.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just going off past history that it's nice that at least you guys have, yeah, you're trying to work.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, we can, close public comment, move on to our finding of facts for COA 23-4. All right. A, the historic purpose doesn't really apply. B, the historic character of the property shall be retained. I don't think this has an impact on that. And somebody speak up if you disagree or wanna add something to it, please. Each property shall be recognized as a physical record, time and place. I don't think the sign has an impact on that.
It did, yeah. With these signs, we can go through a lot of these pretty quick.
Most properties change over time. I don't see any historic significance to the sign or where it's at. I don't think it doesn't cover up any distinctive features or finishes. F, deteriorated historic shall be repaired. This does not apply. There's no chemical or physical treatments under G. I don't think we have any archaeological resources affected by the projects. I think H is not applicable.
Nope.
I, yes, it doesn't apply to the signs. Those are got their own separate numbers. I don't think I applies. J, new additions, or that's not a new addition, so that doesn't apply. Existing structure and premises, yeah, it doesn't. It's not reconstruction or rehabilitation, so it doesn't apply.
Nope.
It's not new construction, so it doesn't apply under L. Materials, this is where we do have some stuff. All new structures, this one is talking about the actual structure itself. Exterior materials, brick, stone, masonry, glass, and wood. I don't think that applies to this sign. I think the next one kind of is.
Although I think if this was, you're saying it's aluminum, that I would rather see this as a wrought iron sign or something to that effect that looked more, that would fit in that area.
Yeah, and that's where I think, and
The next one.
falls in the use of contemporary materials such as aluminum, other metals, fiberglass, or plastics for exterior surface on architecturally significant structures shall be prohibited unless the use of such materials would contribute to the preservation and enhancement of the existing materials. So the question is that an architecturally significant structure?
I think it is. It's 12 feet tall, long. It's going to be, it's bigger than just a sign you see on the building. I think it's a significant structure that's being attached to it.
Anybody else have a thought on the?
What is the distance between those buildings? Do you know, Mr. Hutchison or Mr. Dawson?
From my building to the property line's about 9.4 feet or something like that.
Okay, and if that was split down the middle, let's just say 10, 20 feet. This is over 12, so that'd be over what the half would be. So, you know,
I have an additional approximately 3.5 feet on the side of my building.
okay. So it is split down the middle, but basically where the stairs are at, and then you have the extra where the stairs are at, that's additional. Okay. I thought it was split right down the middle.
Any other thoughts on the
Thank you.
material?
I also would prefer to see it as wrought iron, something a little bit more
Yeah.
historically accurate.
Mr. Dawson, any thoughts on changing
I don't think I'll go with that.
the type of material used? Okay. Color, assume it's black, right? So it's on the color palette, so there shouldn't have any problem there. Section P, signs. All signs within the historic district shall conform to the color and the material standards of this section and be of such a style or design that reflects the era during which the structure was built. Sign size and shape shall not be permitted to cover, blank out, or close existing windows and doorway openings and otherwise hide important architectural features. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on under the signs category? Question would be, does it fit the style? Can you pull that up there again? I know we've had some similar ones come through.
The style that's been going in with most of the signs down there does not fit, I don't think.
I think this one's probably the farthest away from from what we've seen so far. It almost has the look of, like a banner rather than like what a permanent sign would look like. That doesn't kind, is that just me, but doesn't it kind of have a banner look to it?
Yeah.
I don't know that it would be considered historically accurate in any way.
Well, they wouldn't have been, I mean, again, I think if it was an archway that went from building to building and it becomes more of an architectural feature, I think that would fit better than what this is, where it goes halfway across and stops. I just think it would look better, if it was
Something like what they were
together.
proposing
That's just,
on the other side of the buildings, you know, down by the parking lot. That's what I'm envisioning too.
yeah, I mean, there's more of a that's the pergola thing that they got there, but I like if if this came back in as an archway between the two. I think it'd set off that area very nicely, I think.
Jim, any comments? Okay. And then the last one's the guidelines, and the standards and guidelines established in the chapter, so. If anybody else has any questions, I would take a motion to, approve or deny, or with, Mr. Dawson, do you wanna consider working with a overall sign, or would you rather us vote on this, the way it is currently? Or would you like to alter it in any way after the discussions you heard?
I think it's possible to look at that, something like that after, the season, the summer. I'd like for something to be able to be up there for this summer, to be able to draw some attention to the patio. And I'm not opposed to working together with Grace on an archway for the entire alley. If there's a way to somehow incorporate, what's going on, down there, because I think that both of us we're gonna have that same challenge with his entrance being back off the front of the building. That it would be nice to draw some kind of attention for people to look that way.
But for tonight, you just would like what you have here approved or voted on?
Yeah, if you could.
With the same materials, the same design, or would you like to?
The one thought about that, the structure, the actual, the top part of that picture right there, that could be wrought iron, but the other portion of that sign would be aluminum no matter what. There's no way to make that out of wrought iron.
Right. Okay.
And it's really not even gonna be able to be seen either. So I understand wanting to make it out of wrought iron, however, that 40 inches you can't even see that's behind the awning.
Okay.
It's not visible.
All right, does anybody want to make a motion to approve number 1, COA 23-4? What?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second? Ms. Davis seconds?
Ms. Simon, Andrew made the first,
Yeah.
and Ms. Davis to approve.
To approve.
So you're ready to go. My apologies, my hearing is much worse than it should be for my age. Mr. Price,
No.
Mr. Daly,
No.
Mr. Khan,
No.
Ms. Davis,
No.
Ms. Simon.
Yes. I was your only yes this time.
We can't get along.
No.
Motion fails. Yeah, for me, it was just the look of it. It doesn't really match the other ones. Maybe just the fonts and the way it looks, just a little bit off from everything else down there. All right, we're gonna move on to COA -23-5 for the same location, this time regarding the fence. Mr. Dawson?
Yes. Despite Mr. Medici's comment, I hate comments like that. Those are things that really do divide this town. And because this fence that is going up is the same type of thing that was approved previously by other people. You can build, and I can put a fence up, and it actually helps with sound too. And that's the main purpose, and that is also to divide the noise from Race's property, and also to provide the noise to stay in that area. So that's one reason why that fence, I'm asking for this fence to be approved. The second one is it goes with all the rest of the back of the patio and the sides. There's privacy fence all over. And the last time I was here, Mr. Medici said, we're doing away with wooden fence. So of course, when I changed from the wooden fence, now it's, oh, you can't do plastic. There's nothing I can do correctly to some people in this room. And it is what it is. And it just really, after a while, it gets really old. And as far as the comments about Jason James, I don't know, I'm the only one that has privy to those conversations with Jason James, and he's gonna have a perfect exit out of the back of this. So we've already talked about it, and we will work that out between Jason James and I, and we have a great relationship. So once again, I don't like those comments because they're not true, number one, and number two, it continues to just other people that don't even know. You guys are listening to that, and it's not even true. It's no different than the forum. So many things are said that are not even true. So anyways, to go back to this, it is so straightforward. It's a privacy fence that goes along with all the rest of my privacy fences that are back there, and it will provide for that separation of space that I do believe is needed in that area because of all of the things that are going on. It's a very busy area, and I have weddings up in the silo, and we need a separation of space. I don't know how else to say that. When we change over our room up on the silo, we bring people down into the alley area, which at one point in time, Grace and I did talk about that, about not changing that alley. It has changed now. And all I'm trying to do is make sure I preserve my business. It's my only source of income. There's no other sources of income. So we have to make sure that the silo is protected, and we are doing business up there with weddings. And that's one of the things that they keep saying, well, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go after we're gonna change the room over? Because they have the wedding, we have the chairs, and then we have dinner for them afterwards. So we have to put the tables up and get ready for dinner for them. And in between, that's about a 30 to 45 minute process. We ask them to go downstairs and stay outside, weather permitting. There's another big thing that really does affect the silo's business, is that weather permitting thing. You know, if we have to bring them down into the granary, it's gonna be challenging because we usually have a full dining room down below. So there's really no other comments about this privacy fence here. It goes along my property lines, and it's no different than Race and his building and the things that he's doing right up to his property line. I don't know how he's gonna maintain his building without stepping on my property either. So you can, I don't know, some of the comments are just so ridiculous. They really are. I'm sure that Race and I are going to eventually come to an agreement about how that alley is going to operate, because we both need to cooperate. And that's just how it is. But I really would like for this privacy fence to be there for those reasons.
Thank you. Is there any public comment tonight regarding the fence? Yeah, please come up.
I think we hit the first thing that I have ever totally agreed with Tim on. It's very unfortunate, and that's what I agree. I agree with it's an unfortunate situation. It's unfortunate that you have to, as the design review board, look at this. There are no, it's plastic. It's not a wood fence. I never said that you couldn't use wood. The design guidelines that you're supposed to use say you're supposed to use wood. I was only complaining earlier that, and again, it was unrelated to any of this, is that the rules were being violated. The zoning code is being violated. That's what my comment was regarding. It was not regarding whether this is wood or metal or what it is. That's plastic. That's plastic, and it has no place in the historic district. You got an 8-foot tall fence out basically to the sidewalk, which will, mind you, block the entire view of Race's entrance to his building. Pulling it out that far, almost all the way to the road, you won't be able to see because Race's entrance is 15, 20 feet back in that alley. This divides the village. It looks like a hate fence because it's dividing. It looks like two neighbors are in a quarrel. I don't care whether they are getting along or not getting along. This isn't a personal thing. When I look at that, I'm like, well, that's a hate fence. I almost expect to see, where they paint lemons on it or spot it or something. It looks like one neighbor hates another neighbor. And it will make maintenance much more dangerous, much more costly, and in some cases, completely impossible. But from your purview, there is nothing historic about that. There are no finials on it. There's no, rounded balls on the top. It's a residential privacy fence. That's what it is. And it does no place in a commercial historic district. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
I think maybe when I look at it, it just looks like a big tunnel, big black tunnel. And maybe to Mr. Udaley's point, if they're talking about a potential future arch that goes over it, and then you're gonna put a big 8-foot-high wall between the two, I'm not sure how that then would look. And again, maybe we're talking about a permanent structure that, yes, these are the 2 current building owners, but I just feel like in the future, this alley, again, historically has always been an open alley, and I think it is a welcoming place. I don't know why we would want to build a big 8-foot black tunnel down it. I agree, I don't think it is historically accurate.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment?
I want to point out that we are about to embark on the biggest piece of the construction of the building next door, literally in like the next week and a half. Have to be able to get materials back there to access that portion of the building and take that down. I am actually all for being a good steward and neighbor, putting up like a temporary fence that does look good. Not like the crappy chain link one that we had there for a while, just trying to keep people out of this stuff. I'd also like to point out that we had some obstacles and hurdles that we worked through recently that offset the start date of our project. And frankly, we were hoping to be done by now, at least with that piece. And we're hoping to have the new structure built within like the next 30 to 45 days. And my perspective is that forward thinking long term, the fence is a temporary solution, because I don't care that they do changeovers and have people down. I really don't care that you have people on our property at the end of this thing. I could care less, right? We just can't let them in our building or do something like that, which is all going to be access locked and things of that nature. So my point is that I would rather embark on a better temporary fence while we are creating a little bit of chaos there, and do a longer term vision piece of that and not block off the rest of the forefront. To be honest, if I knew that something like that was going to happen eventually, for sure, we probably would have proposed to bring the whole damn addition down the alley and put it close to the road, right? Because that would have made a little bit more sense, because we wouldn't really have a need for that kind of frontage or whatever of the current concrete. So I guess I'm kind of like, I'm torn, because I know it's his property, and I know that you said at one point, I'll put up a damn fence on the thing, and I'm like, dude, that's your property, do your thing, right? I'm also saying, to some extent, like, I think it could look a lot better, and I'm willing to be a part of that solution if we could just work for like the next 30 to 45 days to get the bulk of the stuff down and get it cleaned up and get it moving in the right direction, since we had these hurdles. And I would rather see it stay open, because I actually love his light poles, and I wouldn't mind extending those even more down that alley and doing the bridge sign across and splitting those costs and doing those kinds of things. I legitimately think that'd be really cool. That's my perspective.
Mr. Dawson, are you open to a temporary fence and working with him?
I think that, yeah, I don't think that, like it's more coming back to the fact of us having weddings and having that separation of space and the privacy for those people, more than anything. I mean, that's really critical. And the back of the buildings, there are not exactly what a wedding is expecting, to see the back of a building like that. And so I've heard the comments we've had. This is our third summer of having weddings, and I'm just trying to accommodate my customers.
So you would not be for a temporary structure or working with them?
I think that no matter what, we're gonna have to have something there to block, all of the dust and dirt that's gonna happen. And, of course, it is extremely unfortunate that we're starting this right when summer starts. It wasn't done in the spring, when the patio wasn't open. We're gonna wait until the patio opens, and then we're gonna start construction and start all of the cloud of dust. I've been there. We've already done it over on the side of the building, and they were gracious enough to try to help with it, but there's dust everywhere. There's dust everywhere.
So this is a temporary fence that you're gonna put in, cause it's just for construction purposes?
No matter.
That's the argument you just gave, Mr. Dawson, right now is the dust. That dust is gonna go away in about 40 days, 50 days, whenever they're done with the construction end of it. And that won't be the cause anymore. And I've got a question. You have existing light poles. When were those installed? Because I was in that, on the patio, I think last summer or actually last fall with my volleyball team, and I don't remember the poles being there. And now they're there.
Yeah, because we were attached to.
You were attached to Mr. Robinson's building, I remember, because when we were there, I thought, well, he's gonna have to take those down when he started doing the construction. Were those poles brought before this board?
No, neither were the poles that the village put up in the alley right beside it. No, they
Well,
are
that's-
identical poles that the village put up.
We're the village, so we don't have to come before the board. As a business owner, you do.
You
The
don't?
Mr. Hutchinson could put up a light. He doesn't have to come before the board, I don't believe. You just have to meet the requirements.
Well,
Would he have to come before the board?
I think so.
He would? Okay,
Since
so
I
I
have
stand
been
corrected.
there,
I stand corrected.
We had this discussion years ago when we were talking about the old administration building on the other side of town, about whether we were gonna renovate, other work that we we're gonna do to it, and we would have to come to DRB.
Okay. Then I stand corrected, I'm sorry.
But it never came up to the board to put them in, and technically it should have. They were put in violation, so again, that's another thing for the zoning to look at. Can't put up a light pole without it going to design review board.
I mean, I love the Edison lights, how you have them through there. That's cool. And like Mr. Robinson said, that, in the future, it would be cool to maybe have a different pole that's through there that'll illuminate a little better and you could work together and it'll look nice. And if you had the archway through there, it feeds that whole alleyway. I think if you put the fence up, it's gonna divide and it's gonna be actually, if you're having weddings down there, now you've just restricted half that area that they could be in. I know during construction it's already gonna be restricted, but after the construction, Mr. Robinson's done with the McCune building, you're gonna have that 25 feet of area instead of 12.
Yeah,
I just think you're gonna have-
I
It
don't
just
see
doesn't make
how
sense
it's-
if you're gonna have roof
right.
down there. I don't think people are upset they gotta look at a building next door. They'd have to do that anywhere if they're outside. They're gonna have to look at a building. And now you're trying to make that building a little better. It wasn't looking nice before.
So I know that the piece that we're doing is gonna look really nice and clean with what was approved. Is the commentary and stuff related to the, section that comes out of the back of the lot 120 and the alcove?
Yeah, that and Jason J was the back of his building, yeah. So that's, I understand what you're saying at the same time, but I know that Race and I have talked about that, about being able to keep those weddings and those things in that alley, and that all changed, and we're talking about making the alley walking, and we blocked it when we approved Race is elevator room. Why, it's contradictory that we say that we want to keep it open and yet we closed it off. We already did that. It's already been done, and it's already divided. I didn't divide it. You're making me the person that comes and trying to divide the alley that's already divided. We can't place people in that structure.
They're 7 feet by 10 feet, 70 square feet that he's taking up.
Yes, which is within 2 feet of his property line.
I realize that, and he went through the appeals process, and we did that. And the reason why he couldn't get started earlier is because of the process that we had to go through a little bit. That held him up a little bit. I'm sure that did. But
So rather than helping the situation, what you're proposing is actually gonna make it a lot worse, because you're limiting access and easily accessible to your back. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't understand
I don't
how.
have any additional, I'm only losing 2 feet of the access that you're talking about that I technically have. That's plenty of room.
Well,
It's more than,
But what you're doing is you're losing some feet, but not only that, you're putting up this barrier, which really will make it feel like a tunnel, and it's going all the way up to the front of the building. So that's just a long, narrow space that is not gonna be inviting to people. If anything, that would just put me off from wanting to go down this weird fenced off area when before it was this lovely open alley. And right now, I know it's under construction, so it's not lovely right now, but it'll go back to being a lovely alley. And which is what people expect. They like that big open area that they can walk down. And yeah, it's gonna be impacted a little bit, but boy, this is making a big impact. And a very, I mean, just looking at the pictures makes me feel uncomfortable thinking about walking down that alley with this giant fence, very dark fence.
Can
I
you
don't
tell me
know.
how many weddings you have
There it is with
on the books
That's
for
where it is
the
right
next
now.
45 days?
I'm sorry.
I said, could you tell me how many weddings you have on the books for like the next 45 days? I mean, are we talking 12 or are we talking 2?
You know what, I could not even tell you. Annie, my manager, does that, and I don't get into those details, but I can ask her, how many weddings there are. There probably is not 12, I can tell you that. We have more than 12 events that are going on between now and then, but, probably not weddings.
All right, let's get back to the reason we're here, to look at this is for this fence.
Is there any more public comment, before we stop that section of it? And is there any more questions from Mr. Dawson from anybody here before we, close public comment and move on to the finding of facts? Anybody else? All right. Let's go back to our long list of questions.
We need to shorten these for signs and fences. We have to go through each and every one of them.
All right, property shall be used for historic purpose, does not apply. Historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. I don't think it's really affecting the historic property, I guess the alley maybe.
I think it'll alter the feel of it.
That alley has always been open, it's never been closed.
Each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time and place. I don't think it's creating a false sense of historical relevance, and that's not applicable. Does that have anything to do with the changes, the historical significance of the changes? Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques for craftsmanship, I don't think that's applicable.
Well, the finishes, the type of board that he's using for that, he's using a composite member instead of a wood member.
I think this is more like of the old, if it was an old, I mean, if you were redoing an old one. I don't think like, you know what I mean, changing what is there. I think with that was going back into the materials later. Distinctive finishes, that was what we just talked about. Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced, that's not really effective here. There's no chemical or physical treatments. I don't believe there's any significant archaeological resources affected by that. New additions, exterior alterations, and related new construction shall not destroy materials that characterize the property. I don't think that does. New additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in a manner that is removed in the future. It could be removed.
The one before it said about materials that accent what the property?
It says, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy materials that characterize the property.
Okay.
The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. So that's probably, the environment's probably when you get more into the alleyway of the changes there.
Yep.
Existing structure and premises, reconstruction or rehabilitation with this historic district shall conform to distinguishing original exterior qualities or character of the structure, its site, and its environment, which convey its historical or cultural or architectural value. Once again, we get into taking away that alley. New construction, the new design, new structures, and additions, including site improvements, shall take into account the architectural style, general design, arrangement, texture, material, color of other structures and premises within the district. That's probably, does not help the other structures for sure. Materials on new structures and all reconstruction or remodeling of existing structures within the historic district shall utilize natural traditional exterior materials such as brick, stone, masonry, glass, or wood. I don't think I think we go down to number 2 for materials. The use of contemporary materials such as aluminum, other metals, fiberglass, or plastics for exterior surfaces on architecturally significant structures shall be prohibited, unless the use of such materials would contribute to the preservation or enhancement of the existing traditional materials and overall integrity and longevity of the structure. So I think here, kind of calls out the no plastics for exterior surface.
I don't think this applies to a fence though. And this is
Maybe not, I don't know, I mean, exterior surfaces, I don't know.
Well, I take it as that
That's part of
it
the
would apply to here. You are building something and the materials that should be there should be comparable to that. He's already got a wooden fence that's right below his stairs that it closes off something, it's a wooden fence. And now you're gonna have a composite fence that's gonna be perpendicular to that, but if they were the same, at least they would blend together a little bit, that's there.
Okay, anybody have other comments on the materials? Color, traditional colors and combinations of those colors that are identifying the origin of the original, I'm done talking for the day, in which the structure of the property was built shall be used for exteriors of all new structures to be built and reconstruction, remodeling, and exterior maintenance of existing structures within the historic district. So the colors do meet, it's black, right?
Yeah.
So no problem with the color of it. It's not a sign, so we get down to the guidelines again.
It's the same gray that is on my, front patio.
Okay.
Same material.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other comments, we can take a motion to approve COA 23-5. I can make the motion to approve COA -23-5. Is there a second?
I second it.
Mr. Price,
No.
Mr. Daly,
Nope.
Mr. Cron,
No.
Ms. Davis,
No.
Ms. Simon.
No.
All right. One more. We are on to COA -23-6 for 213 South Chillicothe Street. Somebody like to speak on that one? All right.
Tenant and the architect will be here. All right, so we have the old fire station project. Is that all right if I go up there? And
Go ahead.
No, you have to stand at the podium and point the whole
Make sure
way.
you stay down.
So this is all the existing project today. Phase 1 was everything here, right? Phase 2 was this back fire bay area that we haven't touched yet. And we didn't really have a good idea for it. So we were recently approached by a lady that owns a business here in Plain City. She has a commercial kitchen in Grandview today. She makes pre-made health food meals, and she would really like to move her production to Plain City, and she ships all over the Midwest, these prepackaged meals. So we would like to convert this to a commercial kitchen. However, we need to separate the packaging area from the commercial kitchen area and add a bathroom in here and those kinds of things, and alter garage doors to make them the same size, et cetera. So our proposal is to extend 20 feet out from that back bay going north and spread the 40 feet, or 38 feet, I'm sorry, the length of the building to create a packaging and almost like a storefront where people can come pick up their meals, not a drive-through or anything of that nature, but adding a couple windows, a double door, and kind of augmenting the design, look, feel, features of the rest of the structure as there is today with the project that we're about to open on May 18th. So
It'd have the same board and batten that you have on the other
Exactly,
part of the
yeah.
structure that's not brick.
correct, yeah,
Okay.
so we would actually add board and batten exactly like we have it. All the materials that we would be using are literally the exact same materials that we proposed for the rest of the project. So board and batten, tricord black, same standing seam metal roof, not like barn metal, and then obviously adding the landscaping, those pieces. One of these garage doors, this door here, is bigger than what's shown here today. So we want to shrink that down to match the 10-foot door that's there to make it symmetrical. And then add windows enough, to make it more of an inviting kind of area with a light fixture on that corner to kind of highlight that entrance that she has that wraps around that north corner there. So nothing out of the usual here from what we've already done on that property project, et cetera. So I don't know if you have any questions. Do you need to cover the parking or anything with that?
No, just if that didn't change a whole lot, but this will have to go through engineering, so if approved tonight, just if there has to be any minor layout changes or anything, if we could do that in Palm Creek, can we do that administratively if there's a due to engineering of the parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at,
Can you pull the aerial view back?
Yeah.
I mean, we're here obviously for the design,
Yeah. The building, right?
and for the building. So with the proposal, again, if there's minor adjustments to it that are necessary due to engineering, that's one thing, but if it's.
As long as the
and again,
design-
you and I have discussions about this time, whether something is a material change to the plans. If it's a material change, then it's gotta come back to DRB.
Gotcha.
If it's a minor alteration due to engineering requirements, or whatever, and it doesn't change ultimately the decision here as to the materials and things of that nature, it's not an issue.
Yeah, and I'm not anticipating anything like that, but just as we go through it, just want to make sure.
We were kind of excited to present this tonight. Obviously the village and the school district gave us a CRA, right, for this property. So being able to bring in another business that ships and has significant revenues to help support that CRA, we thought was awesome to bring that to the downtown. And really do something different with that, especially if you're going to add the public parking lot that's on the backside of that. And this thing's kind of ugly as it sits today. So, well, it's really ugly as it sits today. But again, we were also gonna block this door in and this window. We didn't plan to wrap this side because it faces the church and it's really not seen much, but we are proposing to paint that tricord black as well on cinder block, so that it blends in. Yeah, and then these would be the light fixtures that would be above the garage doors and then also adjacent to the man doors that would enter her storefront, essentially. That's on the northeast corner of this. So, and I'm pretty sure those are the exact same lights we used on the backside of the Brick House Blue project, where their sign is lit today, over the ADA ring. So we shouldn't have any differences there either. So.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this project?
Yeah, I would just like to comment that I think that the addition or the extension of that back part of the building is, I really like the fact that it matches the piece that, I guess the corridor, yeah, the connector between the two buildings, and that it does not match the original, because per the guidelines, I think that's a really wise choice. I love that it's the board and batten I also think that painting that block is probably a good idea, and wrapping the existing block, I think it's an existing block wall back there now.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Well, yeah, and it being on the back of the building, I think, you know, again, is not gonna draw your eye much to it anyway, unless you're maybe at the parking lot. But again, I think the distinction is wisely chosen. I also am very fond of those lights, that backlit direction or whatever, I think is a really nice touch. It is not offensive, it is not, and hopefully it'll be a more warm yellow light. I think that's what's there now, maybe, I'm not sure.
They just came off in the last few days, so I'll say.
Okay, but yes, I think this looks really good, and that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Does anybody have any questions regarding it?
So we don't have to talk about the parking lot today?
Yeah, that was part of the original approval for the first go round. Engineering will, if as far as layout, have to change it. Engineering will take care of that.
Also, like you say, you're all invited on May 18th from 4 to 6 for that grand opening, just throw it. I'm excited about it.
If you've not been in that building, you hadn't had the chance to tour it, it is, what Mr. Robinson and his group has done is, it's really nice. There's some cool looking arches that they've, I think they were there already, weren't they, in the exposed where you rebuilt them?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
I couldn't remember the story, I just remember the bars that you found inside the walls.
Anybody else have anything? We'll close public comments. If there's no more questions, we'll move on to reading time.
It'd be nice.
Alright. Property shall be used for historic purpose. Obviously, it's not gonna be a fire department anymore. Minimal changes to the defining characteristics of the building and its site. I don't see any major changes of the historical nature. I don't know if somebody else does. Okay. The historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided. I don't see anything negatively impacting the character of the property. Each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time and place. Changes that create a false sense of historical developments, such as adding conjectural features and architectural elements from other buildings, should not be undertaken. I think that's exactly what you talked about. It differentiates from the old building and the new stuff, so I think it meets that. Properties change over time. Those changes that acquire historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. I believe it does. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques are examples of craftsmanship that characterize the property shall be preserved. I don't think there's anything on the back of this building that we would list as that. Interior and historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. I don't think that really applies to this one. We're talking about a new structure, really. Chemical or physical treatments, not really applicable. Significant archaeological resources affected by the project shall be preserved. Once again, not applicable. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and environment.
And they've done that, I mean, I think they've done a fantastic job with that. That extension could have been bigger and would have taken over. You can still see the historical the building behind it a little bit, but it's done tastefully. I think there could have been so much they could have gone wrong with this. Let's just put it that way. They could have built something much bigger and would have overtaken the back, and they didn't. I think it's a nice little addition.
I agree.
And for the use too, what it's gonna do.
New additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment will be unimpaired. The historic property, I don't think you're attaching anywhere to, I mean, I can't imagine that it's gonna have any effect on it if it got removed, right? Of the existing building, basically it's asking if it ever needed to be removed in the future. I don't know.
You would just
Yeah.
repair the cinder block that we're gonna cut through.
We're not talking about anything great.
Yeah, they have that opening that's there. I think it was gonna be a door, an overhead door before. Now you're probably gonna put regular doors in there, I'm assuming, or something. Between the two, between like the storefront.
The old,
Sorry, to stop. Between the two new structures, yeah, there.
Yeah,
That was an overhead door, I think, at one point, or you were thinking about it when I was there? I thought.
honestly.
Or maybe that was closed off.
I don't know.
It might have been closed
Either way,
off.
We're gonna cut through the cinder block either for doors or
Okay.
overhead.
yeah, probably those doors.
I think it has to be wide enough to at least have a pallet that you can take through, which is 72 inches at least.
Food processing, it's got.
So that's the only thing that-
It's gotta be able to seal and.
Yeah, they just have to patch up the wall afterwards, and that would be fine if that ever went away, but
Yep, I agree.
it's,
Anybody have any disagree on that one? Okay.
sorry to get you.
I'm getting my steps.
A little up, down. Existing structure and premises, reconstruction or rehabilitation within the historic shall conform to the distinguishing original exterior qualities or character of the structure of the site and its environment, which conveys historical, culture, and architectural value. I don't think it takes away or adds to it, it's perfectly fine to me. New construction, the new design of new structures and of additions to existing structures, including new site improvements, shall take into account the architectural style, general design, arrangement, texture, material, color, and other structures and premises within the district. Like I said, it matches the building, matches everything else in the district. Materials, all new structures and all reconstruction or remodel of existing structures within the historic district shall utilize natural traditional exterior materials such as brick, stone, masonry, glass, and wood. I think it meets that. Materials, the use of contemporary materials such as aluminum, other metals, fiberglass, plastic for exterior surface on our architecturally significant structures shall be prohibited unless the use of the materials would contribute to the preservation or enhancement of the existing traditional materials. I think we're good there, unless anybody has an objection. The colors, we've talked about the colors, they match, they've been approved, they're part of the color palette that's already been accepted. And there was no signage as part of this, that would be approved later, so I think we can ignore P and Q gets us to the guidelines. Breaking it. Connor's being American here. All right, if there's no other comment, I will actually make a motion to approve COA 23-6. Do we have a second?
I'd second it.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Crum?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
I still gotta do other stuff on it. I believe. Is there anything left on the agenda? I mixed it in here somewhere else.
Discussion items.
Any discussion items? No, great.
I think we covered it all tonight.
Yeah. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make that motion.
Sure. Wait a second.
I'll second.
Motion.